Hello everybody, Rackhamdar here. Welcome back to another Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links video. In this video, I wanted to go ahead and have a discussion and talk about the new ban list that came out for Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Links. I personally am really happy with what they are about to, or what the changes are going to be. And I know I'm late to the party for this. I know a couple of other YouTubers and content creators have already made their thoughts and opinions, but I figured I do have some people that, I figured might as well put my thoughts out there as well. There's no reason not to. I'm pretty happy with this. I think this is going to be a great change for this upcoming Duel Links meta, and I think it'll really help a lot of decks finally break through the barrier that was the top tiers. It also could, create a lot of intrigue and reason for older players to come back, such as myself. I do admit that the stale meta was one of the reasons that I just kind of didn't want to play as much. So I'm really happy about this, and I do intend to play. Go ahead and I will play a lot more than I have been, thanks to some of these changes. So let's go ahead. I'm going to jump right into it, and we'll talk about some of the changes and what they could be, what the impact will be, and whatnot. So basically, what they're doing, they're rebalancing some of the skills, and then they're also changing or adding some cards to the Forbidden Limited list. So let's go ahead. We'll glance over the skill rebalances first, and then we'll go ahead into the big meat of things. So basically there's two skills that they are rebalancing: Cyber Style as well as Life Cost 0. So they even have some of the reasonings here. The skill has seen much use outside of cyber decks due to its versatility. Therefore, we will change the skill so it can only be used for fusion summoning, restricting its use to what we originally intended. That's a huge nerf. Cyber Style was a huge was a very strong skill. It was pretty much the best new skill that had came out. Really helped a lot of decks just kind of accelerate their plays, because it just basically put three things on the field that you can use for whatever you want. People were using them to econ take stuff. They were using to tribute summon. They were even using the synchro in a couple cases. And while I do appreciate the versatility of them and allowing some of the lower decks to maybe have options for those tributes or something, it was just too strong. It really made decks like Ultra Athletes and Vampires just way too good, way too consistent even, because sometimes maybe an Ultra Athlete would brick, but if you didn't kill them, they would just use Cyber Style in order to prevent they have a lot of high level monsters, so they just pop the Cyber Style, tribute summon normal, and then go from there. And it was really hard to play around as well. So a lot of reasons for this. I do kind of hope that they eventually release a skill that's very similar, because there are some tribute summon decks that could really utilize something of this nature. I think it would be pretty interesting if they could figure something out. And then the other one, Life Cost 0. This skill is pretty much seen much use alongside Cyberstein. It will be limiting the number of times a skill can be used, as the card pool has made it easier to reduce your life points below 1000. This is a pretty degenerate deck. Basically, Cyberstein was really annoying. If you they would often play a lot of hand traps, Fear Karibo that you couldn't really play around outside of a couple of random specific counters. Like Arrow Mages could specific counter it, but that's like one deck out of however many. It was really hard to play around. They used the one cyber card that halves your life points, the Cybernetic Fusion support card. I don't remember the specific name. It halves your life points so you can fusion summon from your graveyard, but they were using it just for the life points, and then also a lot of Cosmic Cyclones. Made it really easy to drop below 1000 and just spam the board with a bunch of fusions. You could even use cards like Hey Trunade, get rid of the full back row. Your opponent can't play around it at all. And then there's also there was also the dragon, the fusion machine dragon monster. It was like I keep thinking of Borolo Dragon, but that's a Link summon in the TCG. But I don't remember what it does. You flip 3 coins and destroy monsters is what it basically boils down to, and it's really oppressive because basically your opponent just loses their whole board in 1 turn, and then you just kill them. And it was very degenerate as well. You stalled out until you couldn't, until you had your combo, and that was pretty much all there was to it. It was kind of lame, and given the way that the game is played, it just wasn't really fun to play against, only for the person playing. So basically they made it so that that one can only be used once per duel, or like 1 time. So like whenever you use the life cost 0, you can only use it that once. So that's a bit that's a huge nerf. This will pretty much be an unplayable skill at this point, unless there's like a random god card that will want to see that 1-time activation or something like that. So that's pretty good. I think those changes are really useful. Really helps kind of nerf some of the really broken decks that abuse those skills. I mean, those decks are still going to be good. That's the kind of the main drawback, is that like a lot of the decks that were using those skills were already just really good. So there's no, so like that just made them better. They're still going to be strong. And while it does nerf the lower tiers, it just gave too much consistency to some of the higher tiers. So it definitely was necessary. And now for the meat, the main course, the main event. We're done with the appetizer. Let's dig in. The Forbidden and Limited list. So these are some crazy changes. They added 2 cards to the Limited. That means you can only put 1 card of those in your deck, a single copy of them. Vision Hero Vion. Oh, that one hurts. Amazoness Onslaught. So basically all the Amazoness decks are only going to have a single copy of Onslaught in their deck. That is huge. It was such a huge problem dealing with 2 copies of Onslaught and with the current card pool that Duel Links has. I know that the TCG doesn't really care. There's like crazy like MSTs in the game, and there's also not twin twisters, but it's basically MST, but you hit 2 of them. You have to discard a card, but it doesn't matter. You just pop 2 back row. It's pretty much free. So there was a lot of ways the normal card game could deal with it, but in Duel Links there really wasn't that. You had Cosmic Cyclone, which has a life point cost associated with it, and you also have you had a couple of destructions. But the real problem was, if you weren't banishing it, it would get this very powerful special summon off. Let me go ahead. We'll get rid of the event here. That way you guys can see these cards while I'm doing this. But yeah, it had this last effect where if this card in the field is destroyed and sent to the graveyard, you could target 1 Amazoness monster in your graveyard and special summon it. That was pretty insane. It basically means that if you did like a board wipe with Black Rose Dragon, the monsters you killed with Black Rose could get summoned straight back to the field with Onslaught. And whenever you loop it with Princess, because Princess can search Onslaught, basically you just get free searches of Onslaught like throughout the entirety of the duel, and it was really difficult to deal with. You basically needed to have 2 copies of your both copies of your Cosmic Cyclone to come in. And then the real issue was, and the other issue is, like, once you've dealt with Onslaught, there's still other traps. There's Wall of Disruption, there's Treacherous Trap Hole, which we'll actually get to because they did some nerfing on that. There was other traps that you had to play around, not just the Onslaught. So I'm really happy about this one. Oops, I didn't mean to do that. Really happy about this. Amazoness were the bane of my existence. I despised the deck to infinity and beyond. I could never, like, it was one of the most tilting decks that I've ever had to play with or play against. I don't know. That was part of the reason why I decided to kind of quit for a little bit. The other one is Vision Hero Vion. Ooh, still hurts. I'm a hero player, so this actually really Masked Heroes is my favorite deck in the game, and this hurts. This hurts them a little bit. Vision Hero Vion was pretty much the main source, like engine the deck had in order to accelerate their plays. Basically what this is going to be is because this was essentially a free malicious search or a free poly search, and basically what it means is you're gonna have to fight for your normal summon with Drill Dark, because like Vision Hero Vion just did so much for the deck, and I kind of understand why they would do this. At least you still get one copy, but unfortunately it's gonna hurt Master Heroes. They're gonna have a tough time. So hopefully they can. I think they'll still be all right, but it's gonna definitely hurt them, because this was what really started their plays. You wanted 3 of them so that you could see one in your opening hand for the most part, so that you could get those monsters in your graveyard and start using your fusions and whatnot. Basically, you're going to run more copies of Poly in your deck, as well as probably want to see your Dangerous a lot more often, because Vion was another way of getting Celestial to the graveyard, so now you're going to have to use your Dangerous, and you have to play your Dangerous a bit more cautiously as well, because you don't have the option of Vion for those free graveyard sends. So pretty crazy nerf. I kind of understand it though. They're also paving the way for some of the new synchro decks that they want to introduce, so I kind of understand it, and it's not like the deck's completely gutted. We'll make some adjustments, maybe on this stream. I'm streaming, by the way, for the YouTubers interested, but yeah, I'll probably build a couple of decks. Maybe I'll make a video on it as well. We'll have to see how that goes, but for now this is a pretty impactful nerf to Destiny Heroes. And now we got the semi-limited cards. Basically what this means is if you can only have 2 of these cards in your deck, and that's from the entire list. So unlike the TCG where you could run 2 copies of each card on the semi-limited list, this is 2 copies of any card. So for example, Enemy Controller is semi-limited. You can now only have 2 Amazoness Princesses and 0 Enemy Controller, 2 Econ and 0 Princess, or 1 and 1 if you wanted to play those 2. You definitely run 2 Princess in the Amazon deck, because it's the core engine. You can't not play the Princess. So that's kind of how this works, which is really it essentially basically means that some of these are getting banned, because for example in Amazons you need the Princess, so some of these like Econ's banned, Treacherous is banned, which is pretty nice. We'll talk about that a little bit, and all that other stuff. Wiz Sage for Hire, because Princess, I'll stop getting ahead of myself. Okay, so Princess getting on here is a really huge nerf as well. Since it can only search 1 Onslaught, you actually need to run like Willpower or something of the nature. Another Amazoness card to basically have an option to search with. And Princess was just a really strong card for the Amazon deck, and it was huge. Yo, Elephatic, Eli, whatever. Welcome to the stream. I'm doing a quick YouTube video right here about the ban list. We'll talk about that. We'll be talking about that, but I'm doing pretty good. But yeah, so Amazoness Princess getting hit is really powerful, because now you don't have it's not as consistent. Amazon used to be a super consistent deck. You would either draw Onslaught or Princess, like pretty much every duel. But now it's going to be a lot less frequent. Wiz Sage for Hire is on the semi-limited list, which also competes with Donpa. So now you're going to have to figure out if you want to run the Wiz for negation and stall, board control, or if you want to run Donpa for the OTK stuff. Trunade is also on this deck. Hey, Trunade was a really strong card for those OTK decks that wanted to just remove all plays the opponent had. It was also another thing that kept on Amazons a bit more in power, because they run continuous traps. And now this competes with like Donpa and Wiz, so basically it means the For Hire deck cannot play Hey Trunade, is what that essentially means, because you need Wiz or Donpa in order to play. And then obviously Treacherous Trap Hole finally getting hit on this list. This card sucks. There's really not much to it. Basically, if you have no traps in your graveyard, target 2 monsters on the field, destroy them. It was really annoying. It's really hard to play around. One of the hardest cards to play around, especially with synchro summoning, because you need a tuner and a non-tuner. You need 2 cards to do a synchro summon. Well, guess what? They just say, hey, that's 2 cards. Bam, treacherous trap pull. Destroy both of those cards, and they win the duel, because now you can't make your plays. It was also really degenerate with Endless Trap Hell, because essentially you could play Treacherous in a deck with a ton of traps, which is really frustrating, because the kind of the drawback here is that there has to be no traps in your graveyard to activate this. And normally you would think, oh, if you're playing a trap deck, there's gonna be traps in your graveyard, so you can't play Treacherous. Maybe a one of just in case, but that's about it. No, people were playing 2 or 3 copies of this card because it was so good. If you drew it on your opening turn, you Princess, Onslaught, Treacherous, you win the game. There's nothing that your opponent is locked out of pretty much all options at that point, outside of a Hey Trunade on their opening turn or something in order to set up a board. It's hugely, like, it's pretty much impossible to play around in the Duel Links meta. Like 90% of your decks are summoning at least 2 monsters on their turn. So these are crazy. These are really good. These are definitely what the game needs moving forward. Treacherous putting on this list means that synchros have a higher chance of seeing a lot more play. Like I said, one of the biggest downsides to synchro summoning is you need 2 cards to do it. You need your tuner and you need your non-tuner. So having a Treacherous Trap Hole in the game basically said, screw you. So it's really good that they finally put all of these on this type of list and took care of some of the problematic decks. Amazonas being nerfed as hard as they are, finally see some play from other decks, because there was a lot of decks out there that just couldn't deal with Onslaught. Like, literally Onslaught was impossible for them to play around because they didn't have an out to it, so they just insta lose. If you see Amazons, they insta lose. So now maybe we'll see some cool new rogue decks show up. It also helps, like I said, moving forward with the synchro era. We have a new mini box coming out as well, so hopefully we'll see some cool new synchros, some cool new just interesting decks coming forward. So that's going to be it for me for this video. I hope you guys really enjoyed. I know I'm again late to the party with regards to the ban list, so hopefully guys you are alright with that, but that's going to be it. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you guys next time. Later!